Without further ado, I present Suzanne Buck.
Well, hello, and thank you for joining me this afternoon. I imagine everyone is really busy getting back into the swing of things after a Thanksgiving holiday, so I'm so appreciative that you're willing to share your afternoon here with me. My name is Suzanne Walker Buck, and this is my first webinar, so I am excited and admittedly very nervous here. But let me give you a little bit of background about myself and my experience in admission. I am currently in my 6th year of working in admission at New Hampton School. And New Hampton School is a school of 310 students, grades 9 through postgraduate. We're predominantly boarding. Of our students, about close to 80% are boarders. And we have students from 24 different countries and 20 different states. We offer the International Baccalaureate curriculum, as well as have a very strong academic support program. Prior to working at New Hampton School, I worked at the Fay School in Massachusetts, which is a junior boarding and day school. At the time, it was grades 1 through 9. And I also worked at the Westminster School in Connecticut, which is a grade 9 through postgraduate program in Connecticut. In between my different positions, I also earned degrees in both social work and education. So here we are, it's the end of a workday, and what are we going to be exploring this afternoon? What are we going to be doing? So there are 3 things that I'd like to touch base upon. And the first one is exploring the intersection between leadership and management. The second is examining tools for empowering individuals and for fortifying your team. And number 3, a little more technical, discussing an evaluation process that I created for my office here at New Hampton. And I wanted to share a little bit about how this presentation came about. As I mentioned, I did a presentation at SSETB in the fall on this topic. And the genesis for this was really exploring within myself what I saw as my strengths and weaknesses as a leader and a manager. And a while ago, last year, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm a good leader, but the manager, I don't have a system in place for evaluating the people who work with me in my office, and what systems do I need to develop that we can be stronger as an office. And I'm someone who is a great procrastinator, admittedly, and I need something to hold my feet to the fire. So I actually wrote a proposal to SSAT to present something that I hadn't yet done, because I figured that would hold my feet to the fire and allow me to really research and explore what is it that we're doing here at New Hampton School, and what did I need to put in place in order to do a presentation. So I wanted to have a little disclaimer that I don't have all the answers which are going to be right for everyone, but I want to share with you what has worked and also what hasn't worked in my experiences in team building here at New Hampton School. So the first topic for exploration is leadership and management. And there are 3 things that I was hoping we could discuss today. The first one being, what's the difference between leadership and management? And I'd love for you all to think a little bit for yourselves of how leadership and management are similar and how they're different. So that's the first thing we're going to explore under this topic. The second is we're going to try to understand a little bit more as why leadership and management are both essential to our roles as admission directors or enrollment managers within our offices and our schools. And finally, how as professionals do we become more proficient in both areas? So I wanted to share just one definition that I found in terms of leadership and management, and I thought this might be helpful for providing a framework for this discussion. And in terms of thinking right now, I look at management in terms of the definition that Trish Jacobson has shared. And she says, you know, management maintains a focus on planning and organizing, controlling and problem solving, and focusing on outcomes. So some of the key principles: planning, organizing, controlling, problem solving, and focusing on outcomes. And those are all really important to our work within admission and enrollment. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we need to fill our schools. And we need to fill our schools with the right kinds of people. And so the people who are within our offices are all charged with these tasks. And in order to make sure these tasks get completed, we do need management. And then now let's look at leadership. So leadership, in Jacobson's definition of leadership, she asserts that it maintains a focus on creating a vision, developing strategies, engaging, motivating, and inspiring people, building trust, having courage, and creating action. So once again, maintaining focus on creating a vision, developing strategies, engaging, motivating and inspiring people, building trust, and having courage, creating action. So with both of these definitions, there's intersection. All right, we are trying to move a needle forward. We're trying to create and develop and ultimately meet end goals. But it's a question of how we do that. And leadership to me is something a little more lofty. It's something that is, leadership is what gets me excited. I get super enthusiastic about being a leader. Being a manager is not something that I quickly jump to and say, hey, I can't wait to manage something. However, it's something that I have needed to grow in terms of my job here. It's something that I have needed to really get better at creating systems for holding my staff not necessarily accountable, but helping them understand what expectations are and helping them to understand what is the job that we're trying to accomplish. So I wanted to just introduce my New Hampton School team. And this is a picture of our team, and this is when we were on a retreat this summer. But Michelle is our Director of Financial Aid. She's on the left. Kathy is next to Michelle. Kathy is our Senior Admission Associate. Gina is our Administrative Goddess. Pete is our Director of Tour Guide Program, as well as the Director of Program Outreach. So he works with all of our program leaders, coaches, art teachers, photography teachers in terms of working with our students. And then I am on the right. So we're a relatively small office. We're 5 individuals. To give you a sense of the volume that we see in a typical year, we're typically interviewing somewhere between 500 to 600 students a year. We're also seeing a similar number of applications. So I think last year we saw probably about 570 applications. And we're a relatively small office, so we're all doing a lot of shared work. Gina is our Administrative Goddess, as I shared, and she can't possibly do all of the data entry, all of the phone work, all of the outreach that's required in our job. So we are all generalists. As much as we specialize in different areas, we are generalists as well, and there's a lot that we need to do. So if you look at the intersection of management and leadership, how is it that I work with all these people to do what we need to do in our office? So I refer to this as great expectations and independence. And there are a few principles that I wanted to share. One of the things that I have learned that I need to do a better job in is providing clear instructions, deadlines, and means of how success is going to be measured. So I've learned that the clearer I am and sharing with others what my expectations are, the better they are able to meet those expectations, right? It sounds so basic, but I think in our roles sometimes it's difficult to take a moment to pause, to really download what's on our brains and what we want people to accomplish. In the admission office, we have so many different projects going on, whether you're a boarding school in which travel is an essential element of getting out and promoting the school, whether it's interviewing, whether it's advertising in different publications or working on social media outreach. There are different projects, and it's essential that each person who's going to sign a project has an understanding of what's expected. The other thing I've learned is it's important to confirm that the individual understands what you're asking. And this is something that I have also learned the hard way, and I have a great anecdote to share. In my first year here at New Hampton, Gina and I were both new to the office, and Gina had never worked in admission, and I was coming from an office where we had set names for different things, and I had said to Gina, I had given her a name of a family and contact information, and I asked if she could send out a packet. And in my mind, a packet was clearly our promotional material. So our view book, our curriculum guide, and the letter saying to your interested family. And so I asked Gina to send out a packet. In her mind, sending out a packet meant sending out an acceptance. So here we both had an understanding that the job was to send out a packet, but yet we had a difference in understanding what the packet was. So one of the things that I've learned is that confirming that everyone is on the same page is a really essential piece of the communication. Another thing that I have learned is letting people know that I'd like updates on how their projects are going. I believe that people should have independence within the work that they're doing, and I trust all of the individuals within my office. I work with incredibly talented individuals, and I believe that they can take a project and run with it, but yet I also need, from a management side, to understand what's transpiring and where they are within the progression of each of the projects. And so I wrote at the end, it's important to hold individuals accountable to the terms as defined, but allow for independence within the project scope. And so I think this is a way in which we're really managing as both as a director within this office of really trying to balance some of the managerial parts, which are a little more challenging for me, as well as just the inspiring. My gut would be, okay, take this project and run with it, without providing clear parameters of what the expectations and the goals are at the end. When I was in social work school, one of the things that we talked a lot about was a strength-based perspective, looking at each individual as someone who has talents and skills and employing those in a way that they can be used most effectively. And I think that's something that I really try as a leader within the office to do. I recognize that every one of my team has different skills that I don't possess. I view myself as a really good big picture creative thinker, but at the end of the day, I'm not someone who's really good at making sure all pieces of the calendar have been covered, or that every tour guide or special interest person has been contacted for a family's visit. And I recognize that there are members in my team who are really good at those kind of detail orientation pieces, of which I am not. So it's learning to really work with the strengths of each individual. It's also giving people the freedom to volunteer for the types of projects at which they feel they're competent and strong. You know, at the end of the day, I believe every person wants to feel competent and valuable and affirmed, and feel like the work that they are doing matters. And so by allowing people to do the projects for which they're best suited, I think makes a big difference, both in terms of morale, but also in productivity. Now, reality is we all have to do things we don't like, that we don't enjoy, that may not play to the best of our skill set. But as a manager or a leader, when we can allow people to do those things which play to their strengths, I think can be enormously, enormously effective. You know, all of these things are, in terms of talking within the abstract of being a leader and a manager and empowering people, we need to provide them with the tools to be successful in the roles that they have within our offices. And these are basic things, but making sure your team members get information. So are they up to date on what's going on within our industry? Are you making articles accessible to them, webcasts, dialogues? Are you allowing your team to network with others within the local community, within our industry? And are you allowing them to know what's going on at other schools? Training and education are ways that I think are really important. Allowing staff members to go to different workshops, to develop professionally, I think makes a big difference. And for them to feel empowered allows for a lot of productivity within the workplace. I also am a big believer in innovative time. I think for those of you who are familiar with the work of Tony Wagner, he talks about playtime and time that we need that allows us to be generative. So kind of playing and manipulating and getting outside of our realm so that we can think in a creative way. And I think that's enormously valuable. It's one of the things that we try to do in our office. My team has a great sense of humor, and we love just kind of joking and creating puns and thinking. And it's amazing that through some of our creative time or playtime, what we're able to come up with, or how we're able to be motivated in getting some of our jobs done. And I believe in downtime. I believe that people need to take care of themselves, to take care of their families so that they can be effective in the workplace. And finally, you need to make sure that there are the right financial resources in place for your team. So for example, if I'm asking members of my team to travel to different places, I want to make sure that they're not just staying in the most cost-effective or cheapest hotel, but I want them to stay in a place, obviously, that it doesn't blow our budget, but a place where they're going to feel safe and feel comfortable. I want to make sure that they have the office supplies that they need. I want to make sure that their offices are reflective of New Hampton School, but also reflective of their own personalities, that they're allowed to be themselves. And I believe that if the work environment is comfortable, that once again people are more impactful in terms of their job. I shared that my office really enjoys spending time and connecting, and that's been something that I've recognized that for my office and for the personalities of the people in my office, we as a group, and if we're looking kind of from an anthropological perspective, as a group, we are a unit that actually needs time for connectivity. It's interesting, in the morning when people are arriving to work, everyone sort of gravitates to one office while they're getting cups of coffee and going through the check-in. Oh, how was your night? How is your dog feeling better? Oh, how's your wife doing? These kinds of connections. People, before my team is productive in the morning, they need to have these little personal check-ins with each other and find out what's going on in one another's lives. And by allowing time for that to happen, creating the first 10 minutes of the day or 15 minutes of the day, just to allow people that connectivity time makes a big difference. we have time in our office. We refer to it as Crab Rangoon, and it's kind of a funny name, but it's our little, not necessarily gossip time, but it's our catch-up time. It's our time when we can connect with one another, hear what's going on in each other's lives, and just connect. And that's something that's important. In terms of, for us as an office, we need to have a morning meeting. We need to review what's going to transpire during the day, what everyone's individual schedule looks like, what visitors are coming for the day, and what our priorities are. And by having that time to connect, we can be really clear in terms of what our priorities are. Whether it's making sure that one family gets to meet with a leader from the art department, or another gets to meet with a hockey coach, or whether our head of school needs to meet with the family who might be a development prospect. That morning meeting time is crucial for that, as well as seeing what's on the horizon and allowing people to give status updates on the projects to which they've been assigned. Communication from the road has been key for us. Each one of my team members has had significant travel time this year. We're a boarding school, so we're on the road quite a bit to promote who we are and what we offer. And having the opportunity for people to connect with one another from the road has been key. We often find ourselves using texts, group texts, as a way of staying in touch, and even doing things like taking pictures of our fare tables, or contests on the road of who got the nicest hotel room for the least amount of money, whose products from their hotel room are the best. Those kinds of things that just connect us, create a culture where people are excited to work. And I wrote calls, texts, emails, carrier pigeons. Full disclosure, we don't have any carrier pigeons, but I thought it was kind of funny. All right. So team building, and this is something that I think is essential to our work. And I've shared some of the small things that my team has done, or that we do. But I also want to talk about the importance of creating projects where your whole team has to work collaboratively, and where success is predicated upon shared responsibility. And also where the culture is supportive and one of encouragement as well. And I think this is important. Once you have a culture of support and encouragement, can be open to critical loyalty, where you are comfortable pointing out to each other where things could have gone differently, or providing feedback, whether it be positive or negative. One of the team building projects that I give my team at least once a year is the job of making a video. And it sounds, and it is, a little corny, but it's an opportunity for my team to have to work together to create the choreography, to create the storyline, and the execution. And this year's video was designed for our tour guide program. So the task was to create a video to develop awareness regarding our ambassador program. And our mascot here at Hampton School is the Husky. And so my team was charged with coming up with a video to promote the Husky Ambassador Program. And so I'll share it with you. It's a little goofy, but it gives us all a little break from hearing me talk. And in one moment, I will have this on the screen. So just bear with me. And here we go. And the sound should come up in a little bit.
I threw a wish in the well. Don't ask me, I'll never tell. I looked to you as it fell, and now you're in my way. I trade my soul for a wish, pennies and diamonds for a kiss. I wasn't looking for this, but now you're in my way. Your step was holding, ripped jeans, skin was showing, hot night wind was blowing. Where you think you're going, baby? Hey, I just met you, and this is crazy, but here's my number. nothing at all. But still you're in my way. I beg and borrow and steal. At first sight and it's real. I didn't know I would feel it, but it's in my way. Your stare was holding, red jeans, skin was showing. Hot night, wind was blowing. When you think you're going crazy, hey, I just met you, and this is crazy. But here's my number, don't call me maybe. It's hard to look back at your baby. But here's my number, don't call me maybe. Hey, I just met you, and this is crazy. But here's my number. All the other boys try to change, but here's my number. I'm crazy. All you take is my life. So bad, so bad, so bad. All you take is my life. So bad, you should know that.
So that was our our video, and the reason I wanted to share that was because in terms of team building, it was a wonderful exercise. Each person had a role to play in terms of whether it was choreography, in terms of whether it was developing the script for the video, and it's goofy. It breaks down barriers. Everyone has to deal with self-consciousness and embarrassment, but work together to creating a product that ultimately we could share with our students. And that video was done right at the start of the school year when the Call Me Maybe videos were popular, and so that was why we had chosen that song. But that is an exercise that my team really appreciated and enjoyed, and we can't look at it without laughing about how ridiculous we are. So I think it was really helpful in terms of breaking down barriers. Another thing that helps with our team building here is just little symbols, and kind of, from a social work perspective or culturally, there are symbols that reinforce and your togetherness. And one of the things for us here at New Hampton, every time a student decides to enroll at New Hampton, we ring a cowbell. And this is a picture of the cowbell that we ring, but someone will get news that a student has decided to enroll, and typically in April, this is when we're ringing the bell over 100 times. Literally, but it allows all of us to celebrate the work that we're all doing, and I think that's something that's really key. And then once again, more cowbell within the office, but that symbol of the cowbell has been something that's been really unifying and has brought about a lot of positivity within the office. Other things in terms of that I do as a manager or leader is try to provide my team with affirmation. And this is something that I think we can't do enough of, and it's something I would like to do more of. But certainly handwritten notes, emails, acknowledgement of accomplishments, having snacks or having celebrations, just to acknowledge the hard work that everyone does, I think goes a long way in terms of building a culture and a sense of team and shared work. Another tool which has been really effective for us has been the retreat, and I think a retreat is a topic that any of us could spend a lot of time on in a whole nother presentation about how strategically you can use your retreat as a means of disseminating information and allowing people to think strategically. We have done retreats on site as well as retreats that get us off site. And I think that they're enormously helpful for getting people on the same page, really doing some crucial strategic work, some planning, and allowing people some creative time and just some space to be away from what's transpiring on campus. So now we get into kind of a more meatier part of this webinar regarding evaluation. And this is the part that I think really is steeped in kind of management principles. So one of the things that I wanted to do was design an instrument to measure the efficacy of each individual on my team in his or her role. And I also wanted to understand what is or is not clear in the expectations of their jobs. Do people have a similar sense of how I view their job responsibilities and what I'm asking them to do, or what I think I'm asking them to do? And so this was a way for me in which I could check in and see if people understood, if we were on the same page in terms of what people were doing. And it was also, I wanted to design a tool that would identify areas of strength, weakness, opportunity for professional growth. And what I tried to do was create an instrument that would allow each individual on my team to complete an evaluation, and I would do the same for them. And I wanted to make it as unscary as possible, but to give us a baseline from which we could continue the dialogue. And that was something that was comfortable to me, where I am more comfortable thinking in terms of big picture and in terms of vision. This was a way that I could have a baseline of talking about where people are at in their skill sets now and how those can develop and grow. So this instrument is not perfect by any means, and it's a work in progress, and this is the first year that I've implemented it. So one of the things that we did on our retreat, I had created this instrument and asked people to fill out the evaluation prior to our retreat. Then, while we were on a retreat, I asked each individual to spend an hour with me. And it gave us time away from campus, away from phones ringing, away from mayhem, in which we could really sit down. So I began this document by saying that this is designed to celebrate your areas of professional strength and to identify those areas in which you have room for growth. Please complete the following evaluation. I will also complete one on your behalf. We will later meet to compare responses and to subsequently develop a list for professional goals for the year. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I'm excited for the dialogue to follow. Happy New Year. So this is what we did in the end of August, beginning in September. So basic, we start off basic. And I should mention I developed this in SurveyMonkey because I also wanted to see were there trends in terms of how people were responding to different questions, and were there areas for my entire office that I needed to work on. And it's clear too that this was not an instrument for feedback about me as a manager or a leader, in terms of this was not my evaluation. And so that's part two, where I will ask my team to do that for me. But this is really about each individual in terms of rating their skills in different areas. And so the first area was scheduling, executing, and following through with a family visit. So everything from booking the appointments, listening information, communication of families' desires to a tour guide, meeting expectations of the family, timely write-up of the interview notes, thoroughness of the interview write-up, communication with the family following a visit, and really maintaining correspondence with the interviewee following the interview. So that was one area. Another area is I wanted to know how people felt about their skills of engagement. Do they actively listen to others? Do they hone in on themes? Are they able to engage the student, able to engage the parent, willing to ask challenging questions? And so all of these were designed to really be the catalyst for developing a conversation. Then how do you rate your level of initiative in office operations? So this was important. As I shared with you earlier, my office is small, and we all have to pitch in and do everything from answering phones to answering admission out on our website, getting the mail, opening the mail, responding to email, entering data, filing materials. This is the non-glamorous work. But this is important too, and certainly there are members on the team who are much better at taking initiative to fulfill some of these tasks, and others will need to step up. And by having this in writing, it allows for conversation to say, okay, you're great at this, but I need you to be more thoughtful about getting the mail or entering data. So the next area was how do you rate your facility or understanding of neuropsychological testing, NCA clearinghouse requirements, learning differences, mental health challenges, testing, grading systems in other countries, New Hampton School application, our website, academics, graduation requirements, athletics, arts, IB, which is the International Baccalaureate, NHS ASP, which is our academic support program, AELP, which is our summer program, residential life curriculum. Next one was our portal, which is part of our in-residence database, how adept are people at manipulating and extrapolating data, creating letters, how knowledgeable are people about the financial aid process, and New Hampton School's strategic direction. And so this gave me an understanding of where people felt comfortable and where their skill sets were. And then we got into execution of planning admission events, representing New Hampton School on the road, building relationships with feeder schools and consultants, helping Husky Nation come on board with admission efforts, so internal marketing and teamwork within the Office of Admission, as well as things like diplomacy, advocacy, taking self-initiative, taking direction from others, openness to feedback, connectivity, utilizing data, innovation, building positive relationships, and technological advancement. And then how do you rate your generation of advertising and marketing initiatives, social media outreach, written materials, and new ideas. And then we get into our admission strategies. In other words, our initiatives in the following areas clear to you: travel, mobilizing the Husky Nation, so getting our own constituency excited. How well do people understand the target enrollment numbers? How well do they understand the desired composition of the school? How well do they understand best practices in the world of admission, and how do they understand objectives for the future? And then we get into levels of connectivity within the New Hampton School community. Things like attending events, volunteering to assist within other areas of school, knowledge and responsibilities of other departments. And then we get into some of the personal attributes and characteristics of people. How do you rate yourself in attention to detail, communication skills, sense of humor, organization, creativity, researching information, PR skills, global awareness, cultural acuity, working collaboratively in groups? And then number 12, I asked, what do you see as your primary responsibilities in your role within the admission office? And so this was a chance for me to really see how people identify their job and what the tasks are that they do in their responsibilities, as well as to identify areas in which they'd like to professionally grow. So things that I can help to support. And then some questions about what do you like best about your work? What do you like least about your work in admission? And then what supports do you need to be productive and feel fulfilled in your work here at New Hampton School? And this was key because this allowed me to understand how I could help people meet their needs, and going back to the principle that people really want to be effective in their work. They want to feel confident. They want to feel like the work they do matters. And what tools and what supports or resources do they need to feel that in their work? So that is the evaluation, and I think we're getting to the closure here in this afternoon. But some things that I hope you will take away from this webinar are that management and leadership intersect. And while certainly I view leadership definitely as being more sexy than management. Both are essential to our work and to our roles. And so it's important that we hone our skills in both areas. As well as that work in this area has to be mindful, both in management and leadership, of individual strengths, weaknesses, and our organizational goals. And also, I should put here your institution's mission, and that definitely needs to be a part of that. And then finally, it's important to advocate for your staff, for your team, to appreciate them and their experiences in their work, to listen to them, and to measure their work. And I do think part of management, which informs leadership, is having measurement and tools to say, okay, this is where we're doing a good job, this is where we're not. And to be able to have measurements and forms of data so that it's not just qualitative data, which I think sometimes is easy for those of us in the world of admission because many of us are people, and so we appreciate qualitative aspects of our work and less quantitative ones. And the quantitative ones we need to kind of employ in our work with our teams to make sure that we understand and have measurements to see how people are doing and that work is being done effectively, efficiently, or that we're accomplishing what we hope. And then that we need to create time for reflection and for creativity, and ultimately that leads to generation of ideas as well as productivity and work. And then finally, I just wanted to share my favorite quote, which nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. And I think in our work that's really essential to remember. So I am super appreciative of you spending the afternoon with me, and I would love to invite you to ask questions or to share feedback.
Suzanne, I'm not sure if you had given this information in the beginning of the webinar, but Samoa Johnny is asking, how large is your school population of students?
Sure. So the question, we are 310 students, of which predominantly we are boarding. So 250 plus students are boarders. So we're predominantly boarding 310 students, grades 9 through postgraduate.
Okay, thank you. Louisa Zent says, fabulous, thank you, I want to be on your team.
Thanks, Louisa.
We don't have a whole lot of questions. I do, oh, here we go. Robin Rivas Pike asked, does your team complete the evaluation shared in your presentation, or do they complete a different evaluation?
No, they completed that evaluation, and then I completed it for each of them. And then when we were on our retreat this fall, or at the end of August, I met for an hour with each individual, and we reviewed how the individual had responded to the evaluation and how I did.
Okay. Samoa Johnny is also asking, do you find that as admissions you are often crossing over into realms of program planning and curriculum?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I think, and it depends upon your school culture and how amenable your school is in terms of crossover, but certainly here at New Hampton, I definitely feel that I'm involved in other areas, and we're constantly institutionally looking at the intersection of mission and market because we are a tuition-driven school, and so if we're offering curriculum or programs that is unmarketable or that people aren't interested in, we're going to force ourselves out of business. So I am really mindful and am involved in areas of other realms of our school. But I know that each school is very different and schools have different needs and challenges, but here at New Hampton I am involved.
Okay. Robin Rivas Pike asks, what evaluation was completed for the director?
So right now, Robin, we're in the process of developing one that my team will will work on for me to provide me with feedback so I can be more effective. But that's kind of part 2 of this evaluation process, and it's probably something that, in all honesty, will be administered in January. But they will have the opportunity, it will be part of this questionnaire or evaluation, but they'll also have the ability to create their own opportunities or questions that they'll respond to share with me some feedback.
Okay. Kristen Watts is asking, does your school have its own standard staff evaluation that you must administer in addition to your own survey?
We don't. So it's really, it's dependent in different departments. So there's a standard teaching evaluation, there's a standard coach, there's a standard house parent evaluation, and there are evaluations in for different staff members, but there wasn't an instrument that was applicable to admission.
Okay, and the last question that I have here is actually a 2-part question. The first is, do you use the process method for dealing with applications, or does your staff work with a file from start to finish? And the second is, how did you decide to break down your staffing responsibilities based on the number of staff people you have?
Okay, so let's start, great questions. So start with the first one. In terms of with the file, anyone will answer the phone and take an appointment or send materials, but then once an interviewer has been assigned, they will follow that family through the process. So they will be the one directly corresponding with the family post-interview. They will be the one following up to make sure an application is submitted. We read all applications in committees, and so people in my office are assigned to read different categories. So it might be 9th grade boarding boys, 10th grade boarding girls, 11th grade day students, postgraduates, so it varies. But as a whole team, we all meet, well, there are 4 interviewing and traveling members and Gina, and we will meet. Gina is familiar with the applications. She's welcome to be a part of committee meetings, but typically she is not an active committee voter in terms of the admissibility of a student. So I'm not sure if that answers the first question. But in essence, each interviewer will follow a candidate through the process, and then it will go to committee. Committee makes a decision, official correspondence goes out, and then the interviewer will be the one to follow up with that student's enrollment. And then part 2 of the question, I'm sorry, Karen, could you repeat?
Oh, absolutely. How did you decide to break down your staffing responsibilities based on the number of staff people you have?
Great. So part of it was when I first came here 6 years ago, there were different roles that individuals were playing. So, but then it's really evolved into what people's strengths are, what they enjoy doing, what they're good at in terms of most effective. Michelle who's our Director of Financial Aid, has a counseling background. And she is incredible in terms of the financial aid process. And one of the things with financial aid, our business manager sits on the financial aid committee. She's incredible with facts and figures and data. So it was less important to me to have a director of financial aid who would replicate the same skills as the business officer, but one who could really put families at ease. So Michelle was a natural fit for be the director of financial aid in terms of what I had determined to be our needs. Kathy, who's our senior admission associate, is incredibly detail-oriented, and she's the one who is great with correspondence with our ed consultants and making sure that families have signed waivers so that we can communicate with ed consultants. She's really good at the follow-up and mass communication to different groups, and she is great with calendars and keeping processes in check. So she's a natural for being a person to coordinate that process. Peter, who works in my office, is an alum of New Hampton. He works in the dorm. He is a basketball coach here. He's head of our men's basketball program, and he has a lot of kid contact. So he's a natural choice to be the director of our tour guide program, as well as program outreach. His relationship with coaches and program leaders is exceptional. So a lot of, the way that the positions have been divided up, or the roles within different positions have been divided up, really is dependent upon the strengths of the individuals that we have within our team.
Okay. Actually, we have another 5 minutes. I just received another question from Louisa Dent. She's asking, do any of your team members have out-of-admission office responsibilities, teaching, coaching, dorm duties, res life meetings, that perhaps create some angst and conflict in expectations or division of workload?
Right, Louisa, that's a great question. So Peter, who works in our office, he has coaching responsibility, as well as is on a dorm rotation. Michelle in my office is also on a dorm rotation. We're very fortunate in that the members of the admission team are well, they have coaching and house parenting responsibilities. They're exclusive to admission, so their time during the class day is not divided in terms of going, having to teach and come back at a different block. So I feel incredibly fortunate in that, because it's concentrated time that we are able to have people in the admission office. Sometimes with coaching schedules and with dorm schedules, those can conflict with admission travel. So we try to do as much as we can in terms of scheduling, so that people aren't overburdened in terms of travel. So Pete, unfortunately, doesn't have any travel in the winter, and we try to balance his load. And I think one of the things which is important here is that my team also understands the responsibility not just to our office, but to the institution. And so just as, Pete might have a lighter travel schedule in the winter, there are times in which I'm engaged in other meetings in the school where I won't be as available to interview. We really try to balance things as much as possible so that there's equity and understanding of the different roles people play within the school. But overall, we're really fortunate in that the team is small and that the primary responsibility is to the admission office, and I think that eliminates some of the conflict that can happen when you have a bigger staff or you have a more fragmented staff, just because of the responsibilities that people have.
Great. We have one more that actually is a really good question. What does your staff meeting schedule look like on an average week? How often and how long do you meet?
Yeah, so in all honesty, we meet every day, and sometimes it's for 5 minutes just to touch base and say, okay, what's happening today? Let's just review. Okay, you're doing this interview, you're doing this interview, this person has a meeting, this person has to meet with these people. So we all are aware of what the schedule is and what's going on. So it could be a 5-minute meeting, or it could be that we are scheduling a 45-minute meeting to talk about planning for an upcoming event, reception, or a mailing that needs to go out, or work with an outside organization, or an update on different students, how they're doing in different realms that we all need to be aware of. So it varies, but we'll schedule a meeting usually once a week that's about a 45-minute meeting, and then the rest are kind of more organic, quick 10-minute, 15-minute meetings in the morning.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to echo Caitlin Lynch and say that was really helpful. Thank you, Suzanne. I think we're going to wrap it up now. I don't have any additional questions. I want to thank our audience for tuning in, and a special thank you to Suzanne for providing our attendees with such a helpful presentation. Just a reminder, I will send all registrants a link to the online webinar page, where a recording and a PDF of this presentation will be made available in the next couple of days. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Have a good day.